He stared at the man across the table, didn't say a word, just locked eyes. 3 seconds passed. No blinking, no shift. Just silence thick enough to freeze thought. The other man leaned back and folded. That's the moment. That's when the transfer happens. Not after a speech, not after logic, but in those first 3 seconds, when dominance, certainty, and stillness take over. This isn't guesswork. It's not some motivational theory. This is psychological warfare. Because the human brain, primitive, ancient, wired for survival, decides in the first 3 seconds whether to lead, follow, or freeze. And if you know the exact switch to flip, you can control anyone's mind before they even realize it's happening. You don't need to speak louder. You don't need to be taller. You just need to own the frame instantly. Most people chase influence, but the smart ones trigger it on command. And it starts here. They told us influence takes time, that respect is earned slowly, step by step, over years of proving yourself, that you need titles, reputation, permission, status, that only people with degrees, wealth, followers, or fame get to be heard. So we believed them. We kept trying to be more likable, more agreeable, more seen. We tried fitting into the system, thinking that was the only way we'd ever matter. But that's the lie, because in real life, influence isn't slow. It's instant. It's silent. It's unconscious. People decide whether they'll listen to you within the first few seconds of your presence, not after a long speech, not after understanding your logic, and not after knowing your resume. And the scary part is, they don't even know they're doing it. Their brain does it for them. Influence lives in the nervous system, not in opinions. The mind judges who's in control before it hears a single word, before the handshake, before the greeting. Your presence enters the room before your voice ever does. That's why some people command attention the second they show up, and others get ignored, no matter how smart they are. Because control doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you frame reality. And frames are invisible. They're the unspoken rules of who owns the space. See, people don't follow words. They follow frames. The one who controls the frame controls the room. It doesn't matter if you're taller, louder, or even richer. If your frame is stronger, meaning your belief, energy, and stillness are unshakable, you win. Always. And that frame? It's not built on emotion. It's built on inner authority. That calm, steady energy that tells the world, I don't need your approval. I already know who I am. That's what makes people lean in. That's what forces silence when you speak. That's what shifts power in your favor without you lifting a finger. This is why loud people often get ignored, and quiet ones, if they're grounded, own the room. It's not volume, it's vibration. It's not how hard you try, it's how stable you are, and the world picks up on that frequency instantly. Influence isn't earned the way they told you. It's taken in the moment you decide to own your frame. The second you stop seeking permission and start commanding presence, people feel it. They respond to it, even if they don't understand why. That's why some nobodies walk into a room and shift the atmosphere. That's why some CEOs barely speak and entire teams fall in line. Then that's why you've been overlooked, not because you lacked talent, but because your frame was too soft. But not anymore. From here on, you stop playing by their timing. You stop waiting to be seen. You don't wait years to influence. You do it in 3 seconds, or not at all. The moment you enter a room, your mind isn't waiting for logic. It's scanning for control. Not consciously, but automatically, before a single word is spoken, before a handshake or a smile, your brain has already judged who's in charge and who's not. It happens in 3 seconds or less. That's microdominance. And it doesn't require strength, money, or fame. It requires presence, the kind that hits before you speak. Your brain is wired for survival, and survival depends on reading power fast. That's why the human nervous system evolved to detect danger, strength, leadership, and submission within seconds. It's primal. You walk into a space and your brain, especially a part called the amygdala, lights up. It's scanning faces, posture, voice tone, stillness, and it only cares about one thing. Am I safe, or should I submit? That ancient question shapes every interaction you've ever had. People don't even realize they're doing it, but they are. Their eyes flick to posture, stillness, control. They notice if your breathing is calm or anxious, if your shoulders are locked or loose, if your gaze holds or flinches. In those first 3 seconds, their body makes a decision: fight, flight, or follow. And the majority, they follow. Because most minds aren't trained to lead, they're trained to respond. That's how the social hierarchy keeps itself alive. It's why wolves form packs, why armies have generals, why people look toward someone the second chaos erupts. We don't choose leaders by resume, we choose them by instinct. We feel it when someone owns the moment. We obey calm energy, still energy. Dangerous silence, not screaming, not arrogance, just silent control. And here's where it gets real. It's not always the biggest or loudest person who wins that control. It's the most grounded one, the one who shows no flinch, the one who doesn't blink first. Microdominance is about claiming space without needing permission. When someone with strong presence enters, the air shifts. People get quieter. Eye contact breaks. Bodies subtly lean or move aside. It's not about being a bully. It's about holding a frequency so steady, the nervous systems around you either tense up or give in. And you can train that. You don't need to be born with it. You don't need fancy degrees or perfect genetics. You just need control over your own nervous system, your breath, your eye contact, your energy, because in those 3 seconds, everyone is deciding what role they'll play: predator, prey, or ghost. And most don't even know they're being tested. They're talking too much, fidgeting, chasing approval, trying to be liked. But the person who stands still, watches first, speaks last, that's the one who's already won. That's the one the brain tags as authority. And once that tag is made, it sticks. People will treat you based on that micro-impression for the rest of the conversation. That's why some people never gain control. They lost it in the first few seconds, before they even opened their mouth. It's not magic. It's wiring. Every day, in every room, your nervous system is in a silent war with others. Whose frame will collapse first? Who will hesitate? Who will overtalk just to fill silence? The one who doesn't react wins. And that's the core of microdominance. That's the science behind power, not force, not aggression, just psychological gravity that pulls others into your orbit without them realizing why. Once you understand how the human brain responds to confidence, silence, and structure, you don't need long speeches to win someone over. You don't need approval to lead. You don't even need words to control attention. All you need is 3 seconds of presence they can't ignore. 3 seconds That's all it takes. The moment you walk into a room, the game starts. But no one says it out loud. It's quiet. It's fast. It's automatic. Your voice tone, your eye contact, how still your body is, all of it gets scanned like a code. And either you're read as powerful or invisible. There's no middle ground. And you don't get a second chance to fix it. Most people don't even know they're being read. They're too busy filling the air with empty words, fidgeting, adjusting their clothes, trying to look confident. But the ones who understand this silent test, they don't move, they don't rush, they don't try. They hold the moment like it owes them something. That's the power of stillness. In those first 3 seconds, when others stumble to gain control, a person trained in presence has already taken the space. They own it not by shouting, not by showing off, but by staying unmoved. That stillness sends a message to the brain of everyone watching. This person leads, and the brain believes it, because psychologically, the mind interprets calmness under pressure as control, and control equals safety. That's why people unconsciously follow those who hold still in tension. Your voice, if it's low and measured, adds pressure. Your gaze, if it doesn't flinch, adds weight. Your silence, if you don't rush to fill it, creates command. It's not manipulation, it's mechanics. The nervous system sees someone who isn't panicking, and it decides they must know what's happening, so it submits. That's why elite interrogators never rush. They pause between sentences and let silence work like a weapon. That's why Navy SEALs are trained to walk slowly, speak less, and let their energy dominate the space. That's why top-level negotiators don't fear awkward pauses. They use them. Because when you say nothing, the other person fills it with insecurity, and in that insecurity, they start to fold. This is the root of control. You don't force it. You let the other person hand it to you. You just hold the frame so steady that their frame crumbles. Eye contact is key, but not staring. Controlled, unshaken, direct. If they look away first, it tells their nervous system that they're yielding, even if they won't admit it. Your voice tone matters more than your words. A calm, slow delivery signals that you're not reacting, you're directing. Fast speech, high pitch, nervous energy, all of it reads as weakness. And the body, it must be still. No random movements, no shifting weight, no tapping fingers. Every signal you send either says I'm in control or I'm unsure. There's nothing neutral. Even breathing matters. Shallow breath equals anxiety. Slow, controlled breathing makes you unshakable. When your breath is calm, your mind follows. And when your mind is calm, other people's minds bend. That's how powerful the first 3 seconds are. It's a psychological ambush. Before anyone can defend themselves, they've already submitted or pushed back based on energy alone. The brain doesn't wait, it reacts. It processes facial micro-expressions, voice fluctuations, tension in the body, all within milliseconds. So when you walk in knowing that, you don't waste the first few seconds trying to impress. You win by being unshakable, because in those 3 seconds, the room has already decided who's leading and who's lost. You don't ask for power. You show up like it's yours, and the world reacts accordingly. It always starts the same. A person walks toward you, expecting the same script. Smile, greeting, small talk, comfort. Their brain is on autopilot. But if you want to control their mind in 3 seconds, you need to break that script instantly. That's the first step. Interrupt their pattern. People walk through life in mental loops. They expect reactions, rhythms, and outcomes. The second you violate that rhythm, even slightly, their brain stutters. It freezes. And in that glitch, control is transferred. That's the hack. You're not overpowering them. You're hijacking their attention. You interrupt what they expect, and then you hold the frame so they don't have time to reclaim it. Step 2 is about freezing the moment. No smiling, no excessive blinking, no shifting. You just stop the world, hold their gaze with quiet certainty, not as a challenge, but as a wall, a psychological pressure that makes them start questioning what's happening. That tension, it's power, and only those who know how to sit in it without flinching can use it to control. Then comes the final strike. Step 3, the voice. Your tone should never rise. It should drop. Low, slow, deliberate, and the words must be loaded with ambiguity. You don't ask something that can be answered with logic. You ask something that forces a mental pause. Something like, "Why do you think that always happens right before someone loses control?" Or, "What makes you sure you're safe right now?" Or, "Is that your real reason?" Or the one that sounds good. Those are not questions meant to be answered. They are meant to unhook the logical mind and pull the person into their own internal chaos. Their eyes blink faster. Their breathing shortens. They try to recover, but they're already behind. That gap between the pattern they expected and the one you gave them opens the door. And if you stay still, if your energy doesn't change, they follow your lead without realizing it, because their brain wants the tension to end. It wants structure again. It wants someone to own the moment. And you already do. This is the hack top-level interrogators use, not brute force, not shouting, just silence, presence, and perfectly placed ambiguity. It works in negotiations, in conflict, in power plays. And it works because the brain isn't built to stay in uncertainty. When faced with confusion, it seeks certainty, fast. And whoever provides that certainty, even with a single sentence, becomes the new authority. You don't win control by yelling louder. You win by holding the frame and feeding their uncertainty back to them like a mirror they didn't ask to see. That's how you break their loop. Most people don't notice how fast this happens. It's 3 seconds, maybe 4. But once it starts, they're already adapting to your presence. They talk slower. They justify themselves. They wait for your reactions. Their body subtly leans in or away, depending on whether you're still holding that silent edge. And once they break eye contact first, it's done. That's when their frame collapses. They can't take back that moment. Their brain has already submitted to yours. You don't need to announce it. You just continue like nothing happened, because to them, something did. This isn't about being evil. It's about understanding human response. Every person is walking through life trying to hold their own script together. All you need to do is press pause on that script, and their subconscious opens like a file you can now write on. The key is unpredictability. People defend against what they expect, but the unexpected short-circuits them. It removes the defense and replaces it with curiosity or fear. That's why you don't explain yourself. You don't fill the silence. You let them feel the glitch. And when they do, their system collapses inward, and their trust, attention, or obedience shifts toward you. You can practice this in daily life without saying anything extreme. Walk into a room slower than usual. Make less facial movement than expected. Ask questions people don't prepare for. Say less than you normally would. Then just pause. People will feel the edge. They'll sense something's different. You've stepped out of the social script, and they don't know the new rules. In that confusion, you now set the rules. That's the hidden code of control. The one people never see coming, not because it's loud, but because it's quiet, in a world that's addicted to noise. And it works because control doesn't feel like control. It feels like gravity. People don't say, "He's controlling me." They say, "He just feels grounded. I trust his judgment. He just gets it." They never realize you planted that energy inside them using nothing but timing, tone, and tension. You never demanded anything. You just created the conditions where following you felt better than resisting. That's the kind of control that lasts. That's the kind that works even after you leave the room. Because now, when they see you again, their brain remembers. That's the person who held the moment. And it won't challenge that memory. It will obey it, automatically. But this only works if you're calm. If your own nervous system is chaotic, it won't land. Your breathing must be slow. Your mind must be still. You must train yourself to hold silence longer than what's comfortable, because on the other side of that silence is where the power begins. You are no longer reacting to them. You're shaping the space. And in that space, their mind bends. Every time. Walk into a boardroom and you'll see it play out. The guy in the $3,000 suit speaking first, laughing too loud, showing graphs, stats, trying to fill the air with his brilliance. But the one who owns the room. He's silent at first, not in weakness, but in calculation. He lets others play their cards. Then, when the moment's right, he speaks, calmly, deliberately, with zero rush, and everyone stops, not because he's louder, but because he's untouchable. He's not reacting to the room. The room is reacting to him. That's how this hack lives in business. It's not about credentials, it's about gravity, the kind that bends attention without needing to shout, the kind of presence that makes CEOs pause. Investors lean forward. Entire teams adjust their posture. He doesn't chase deals. He becomes the decision. That's how boardroom power works, not by having the most slides, but by being the one who doesn't blink. And in dating, it's even more raw, because biology doesn't lie. When someone walks in with the need to be liked, you can smell it. Approval energy kills attraction. Desperation can't be hidden. It leaks through body language, tone, timing. But a person who's already enough, already calm, already inwardly full, they don't perform. They don't overshare. They don't try to convince anyone. And that absence of need, that's rare. That's magnetic. This hack flips the script in romantic settings. You're not chasing validation. You're evaluating alignment. You don't rush to talk. You pause. You scan. You break the rhythm. And that break triggers interest. Because when you interrupt someone's expectation of how a conversation is supposed to feel, their brain can't place you. And what the brain can't place, it starts to obsess over. That's how you switch roles without trying. You stop being the one proving yourself and become the one they're trying to figure out. Leadership runs on the same formula, but with higher stakes. People don't follow because of titles. They follow because of certainty, and certainty isn't shown by volume or speed. It's shown in silence, in how you handle pressure, in how you respond when things fall apart. Leaders who use this hack don't panic. They slow everything down. Chaos happens around them, but their breath stays steady. Their words land heavy, not because they shout, but because they don't waste any. They don't motivate with hype. They influence with control. And when they speak, it's clear they're not asking for belief. They're giving direction. The power of this hack in leadership is that it lets you bypass the noise of needing to be liked and go straight to commanding trust. You don't ask for it. You create the conditions where people feel safer following you than resisting you, and that's the secret. People don't want to be led by the loudest. They want to be led by the calmest in the fire. In conflict, this hack becomes your shield and sword. Because arguments, fights, and confrontations, they're all energy battles. The one who controls the pace wins. Most people raise their voices, they flinch, they let emotion dictate rhythm. But when you hold the frame, when you slow your breath while the other person speeds up, you start turning their aggression into imbalance. You don't mirror their chaos. You absorb it, neutralize it, then reframe the entire moment with a single sentence. Is that your truth, or are you just louder today? Say that, slowly, unshaken, and the air shifts. They suddenly hear themselves. Their momentum collapses, and now they're reacting to your pace. That's psychological jujitsu. You don't resist the energy, you redirect it. You don't overpower the opponent. You let them tire themselves out emotionally while you remain still. Eventually they break. Their voice trembles. Their rhythm glitches. Their points lose structure. And you win the frame, not with violence, but with presence. This is how military operators control high-risk rooms. This is how master negotiators shift millions with 5 words. This is how you dominate emotionally hostile environments, not by trying harder, but by being unshakable when it counts. Whether it's the business floor, the dating table, the leadership stage, or the heat of confrontation, it all comes down to the same thing: who bends the frame. The person who bends it is reacting. And once you react, you're no longer in control. So this hack, when applied, trains you not just to lead others. It trains you to master yourself. You stop reacting. You stop rushing. You stop trying to be impressive. You become still, focused, intentional. That's the moment people lean in, not when you speak, but when they feel your silence and know something just shifted. You don't need to prove yourself. You already belong. That's how the 3-second mind control hack comes alive in the real world. Quietly, invisibly, and when done right, undeniably. There's a side to this hack most people never talk about. The part where silence becomes a weapon, not a tool. The same stillness that gives you presence can also become a trap. When used with the wrong intention, this technique doesn't just control attention. It captures minds. And there are people who've built entire lives, empires, and cults on that kind of psychological control. They understand something the average person doesn't: that human beings crave certainty more than truth. They don't need to be told what's right. They just need to feel like someone knows where they're going. So when someone steps in with that unwavering presence, with eyes that don't shift, with a voice that never cracks, the average mind gives in. It happens so fast. That's how cult leaders operate. That's how con artists win. They don't need facts. They only need your confusion, your emotional hunger, and 3 seconds of unshakable control. That's all it takes. And the moment you respond, even subtly, the frame is set. They now shape what happens next. They know how to pause just long enough that your brain fills in the gaps with trust. They know how to use stillness not to calm, but to threaten. It's not overt. It's not loud. It's surgical. And it's terrifying when done right. That's why certain political leaders can move entire crowds without shouting. That's why abusers rarely raise their voice. They raise doubt. doubt in yourself, doubt in your memory, doubt in your judgment. And they use the same hack, cloaked in calmness, to make you question your own thinking. This is the darker side of influence, the place where it stops being a skill and starts becoming a weapon. The same psychological glitch that makes people follow calm energy can also make them vulnerable to manipulation. It's not about the truth anymore. It's about the frame. If someone controls the frame, they control the meaning. And if they control meaning, they control emotion. Cult leaders aren't geniuses, they're pattern readers. They spot emotional need, break the script with unusual calm, and inject identity. That's what makes them dangerous. They interrupt the noise of life with a presence so sharp, it feels like relief. And once you lean into that relief, they start rewriting who you think you are. Not all at once, slowly, step by step. They reward obedience with emotional certainty. They punish disobedience with confusion, guilt, silence. And it works because they've learned that humans don't respond to logic in chaos. They respond to rhythm, stillness, framing. The hack you're learning now. That's the same tool used by those who convince people to surrender their freedom. One conversation at a time. That's why this isn't just a technique, it's a responsibility. You can walk into a room and command attention in 3 seconds, but you have to decide what you'll do with it. And more importantly, you need to learn how to defend yourself when it's used against you, because it will be. The moment someone speaks softly and calmly and slows the moment down, your brain leans in. It lowers its guard, especially if they pair that calmness with status or confidence. They don't need credentials, they just need composure. That's why scams often start with, "I'm not here to sell you anything." That's why toxic partners win early trust by just listening. That's why workplace manipulators never raise their voice. They raise their certainty. And you're not trained to spot that. Most people assume danger looks aggressive, but real control looks quiet, subtle, peaceful, even. The kind of energy that wraps around your nervous system and makes you feel safe, right before it breaks you. The moment you sense someone skipping your logic and aiming for your rhythm, pause, ask yourself, are they interrupting the pattern to help or to rewrite it? Are they creating space for your voice or closing it without you realizing? The best defense isn't aggression, it's awareness. If you notice yourself changing your tone, justifying more than usual, or second-guessing your instincts, stop. You might already be under the influence. And that's how real psychological warfare works. Not in noise, in silence, not through force, through subtle rewiring of belief. You can use this hack to calm a room, to own a stage, to lead in pressure. But never forget, the same mechanics can make someone a master manipulator. That's why some of the most dangerous people on Earth aren't loud. They're focused, patient, and they only need 3 seconds. It doesn't matter how powerful a hack is if you freeze when it's time to use it. Mastery doesn't come from knowledge, it comes from muscle memory. You have to become the kind of person who doesn't flinch, who doesn't rush, who can hold a room, hold a pause, and hold their own heartbeat without panic. That only happens through conditioning. You train this like a weapon. Every morning before the world starts yelling, you sit in silence and teach your nervous system how to obey you. You slow your breath. You hold your eyes still. You learn what stillness actually feels like. Not laziness, not weakness, but complete control of your inner rhythm. And at first, it'll feel awkward. Your mind will scream for distraction. Your chest might even tighten. But that's the resistance. That's the part you need to overcome. Because once you master calm under no pressure, you can begin to apply it under fire. Your voice is your next tool. It needs to come from a place that's grounded, not shaky, not performative, but anchored. Start by reading powerful lines in a slow, low register. Then read them again slower, then again quieter. Practice speaking with silence in between words, so each one has weight. Your voice doesn't need to carry information. It needs to carry energy. You're not trying to impress. You're controlling tension. When you speak with no urgency, people lean in. They expect more. That space between your words becomes magnetic. And that only happens if you stop trying to fill it with noise. Silence isn't empty, it's loaded. But you have to condition yourself to be okay with it. You have to untrain the part of your brain that thinks speaking quickly equals confidence. It doesn't. Confidence is comfort in silence. Comfort in holding your ground without blinking. That's what people remember. Next is stillness. Stillness isn't stiffness. It's presence. It's the art of doing nothing on purpose. Sit in a chair for 5 minutes. Don't move your hands. Don't shift your legs. Don't react to an itch, a tick, or a thought. Just sit. Watch how your body fights back. That fight is your edge. Because the moment you can sit like a mountain, unmoved, you begin to project something people can feel. They don't even know why they feel it. They just sense there's something about you that doesn't chase, that doesn't shrink, that's unbothered. And in a world addicted to motion, that kind of stillness is terrifyingly attractive. You'll start to notice people reacting differently. They speak slower around you. They wait for your response. They sense your command, even if you haven't said a word. That's the power of presence trained through stillness. Then there's unpredictability. The brain is wired to feel safe around patterns. That's why most people are forgettable. Their energy is predictable. You already know what they'll say, how they'll say it, and when. But when someone breaks that pattern, slightly, without forcing it, they suddenly become unforgettable. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being random. It means being conscious of rhythm. Sometimes you speak. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you break eye contact. Sometimes you hold it long enough to shift the energy. You move when it matters, not when you're uncomfortable. You speak when there's weight to your words, not to avoid silence. When you become rhythmically unpredictable, people begin adapting to you. They can't figure you out, and that mystery makes them pay attention harder. That's what separates influence from presence. Anyone can be seen. Not everyone is felt. To be felt, you must interrupt expectation and then control what happens after. Conditioning this instinct means you stop waiting for the perfect moment to use the hack. You become the hack. You don't think, now's the time to use my calm presence. You simply are calm, all the time. You don't think, let me control my voice. You've trained it so much, it's your default. The same way a martial artist doesn't plan a block. It's built into their nervous system. That's what this becomes. Your default tone becomes controlled. Your default posture becomes still. Your default rhythm becomes powerful. Not because you force it every day, but because you've burned it into your system. You've made silence your friend. You've made stillness your home. You've made tension your testing ground. And people sense that before you speak. When things go wrong, Your voice stays steady. When others panic, your shoulders don't twitch. When the room gets loud, your energy gets quieter. Not because you're weak, but because your presence doesn't need defense. It is defense. That's the kind of energy you can't fake. That's the kind of control you can't imitate. It only comes from repetition, controlled breathing, cold mornings, long pauses, solo practice. It's not glamorous, it's brutal, but it works. You don't perform this skill, you live it. And the more you train it, the more invisible it becomes, until one day, someone says, "I don't know why, but when you talk, people listen." That's when you know it's working. You didn't say anything louder. You didn't say anything smarter. You just said it with unshakable rhythm. And they felt it before they heard it. There's a kind of energy that doesn't announce itself, but everyone feels it. The moment someone enters the room, something shifts. Heads turn, voices lower, movements slow. No one can explain why. It's not their looks, not their clothes, not even their reputation. It's something deeper, an invisible pressure, a presence that demands nothing, but commands everything. That's the aura built from silence, stillness, and controlled energy. It's the kind of power you don't speak into existence. You carry it in your breath, your posture, your ability to withhold when others overshare. Mafia bosses had it. Elite CEOs carry it. Top-level closers move with it. They don't ask for attention. They absorb it. And it all comes down to one thing. They're not leaking energy. While others scatter their presence, they hold theirs like a loaded weapon, locked, unshaken, and clean. And in a world that runs on chaos, that kind of still energy is rare. And when something is rare, it becomes valuable. People start chasing it. That's the secret of charisma most books never teach. It isn't about being likable. It's about being undeniable without even speaking. This kind of presence comes from restraint. It's the opposite of neediness. You're not trying to impress. You're not trying to connect. You're simply being. And that being has weight. Your silence becomes louder than other people's noise. Because it's not just quiet, it's focused, it's intentional, it's heavy. When you look at someone, they feel it. When you pause, they panic. When you say less, they listen more. That's control without volume. That's leadership without asking. And the aura only grows stronger when it's paired with stillness, not just in your body, but in your emotions. When someone yells and you don't flinch. When someone mocks and you don't respond. When someone tries to rush you and you hold your pace like nothing touched you. That's when they realize they can't move you. And once people feel they can't move you, they begin to move around you. You become the center of gravity in every conversation, every negotiation, every relationship. You don't ask for space, you become the space. And what makes this even more powerful is that it can't be faked, not for long. You can pretend to be calm for a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, but real stillness can't be sustained by force. It has to be real. It has to be trained. It comes from hours of doing nothing, from sitting in discomfort without reaching for distraction, from breathing through anxiety until it bends to you, from practicing the art of non-reaction until it becomes instinct. And when it does, everything changes. Your walk slows down, your speech gains gravity, your eyes stop darting, your body stops fidgeting. You become composed, not stiff, not robotic, just composed, like you know something others don't. And maybe you do, because once you've trained yourself to hold your energy, you start seeing how others throw theirs away. You see how quickly people give away control in their tone, their tempo, their posture, and you realize the game was never about speaking well. It was about being felt without words. That's why those who move like ghosts, calm and calculating, seem untouchable. Their silence isn't awkward, it's weaponized. Their energy isn't loud, it's dense. And their stillness isn't passive, it's predatory. They let the world make the noise while they measure their moment. That's why they always seem to speak at the exact right time, with the exact right words, in the exact right tone. It's not magic, it's awareness, it's control. It's that aura, built from energy, not wasted. The most powerful people in the world aren't the ones who win every argument. They're the ones who make you think twice before even starting one, because you feel their presence before they even speak. And that's the energy that bends situations without touching them. If you train yourself to control your breath, your tone, your body, and your silence, you're training your aura. And aura is currency. It walks into rooms before you. It holds doors open that charm can't. It builds trust faster than talk. And most importantly, it keeps power where it belongs, with you. Not scattered across the room, not leaking out in nervous gestures, not diluted by over-explaining. Just centered, grounded, solid. And that kind of energy makes people listen harder, lean closer, and second-guess their own pace. Not because you forced them to, but because your presence gave them no other option. That's charisma without chaos. That's dominance without noise. That's power, felt in silence. Some minds don't bend. No matter how sharp your silence is, no matter how precise your voice control becomes, you'll meet resistance. Not everyone is easily moved, and that's where the true test begins. Because there's a difference between someone who's simply unaware and someone who's trained. The trained ones will see your pause, feel your calculated stillness, and they won't blink. They won't fill the silence. They won't shift their weight. They'll meet your calm with deeper calm. That's when you realize you're not in control. You're in a standoff. The worst mistake you can make in that moment is to push harder. That's when everything collapses, because people who've mastered their own mental frame aren't just immune to manipulation. They get offended by it. They've seen it all before. They've read the books, heard the tactics, practiced the same control techniques in silence, and they're not here to play your game. If you try to lead with force, even silent force, they'll notice. And once they feel the intention is to control them, the wall goes up. Not loud, not angry, just gone. Disconnected. They give you nothing back. You'll say something calculated, and they'll blink slowly, like they didn't hear it. That's not confusion. That's dominance. That's a signal that your approach didn't land. You're not speaking to a weak mind. You're speaking to someone who has already practiced every move you just made. What do you do then? You shift. You respect their resistance. You don't challenge it, you acknowledge it. You change your energy from control to collaboration. Because if you're truly trained, you'll know when not to lead. You'll know when to listen. Some minds require respect before access. They won't be moved by power, only by proof. So instead of pushing your frame harder, you make space for theirs. You ask without pretending. You slow your rhythm, not to trap them, but to meet them. You match their tone without mocking it. That's real skill. That's where this hack matures, when it evolves from a weapon into wisdom. Not every room needs to be conquered. Some just need to feel safe before they open. And if your ego can't handle that, you were never in control to begin with. Because the highest form of control is knowing when to let go of it. Some minds aren't yours to move. They're there to teach you something, and if you can spot that, you've already won. There comes a point when you stop trying to control people, not because you've lost the hunger, but because you've outgrown the game. The tricks feel empty. The silent pauses, the calibrated tone, the anchored eye contact, they still work, but they no longer excite you. You realize there's something far more powerful than control. Influence. Real, sustained influence. The kind that doesn't need to be reset in every room you enter. The kind that walks ahead of you, announces your presence without sound, and earns respect before you speak. That's when you stop performing. You stop adjusting your rhythm for every person you meet. You stop scanning for leverage in conversations. And instead, you hold space, not to dominate it, but to shape it. People begin to change how they talk around you, not because you're manipulating them, but because your presence reminds them of what power really looks like. It looks like restraint. It looks like grace under pressure. It looks like someone who could force control, but doesn't. You move from needing attention to choosing silence. You let others speak first, not out of insecurity, but strategy. You're not racing to lead. You're watching who steps up, who's reactive, who breaks under tension. And you use that information, not to exploit, but to decide who's worth influencing at all. Because not everyone is. Some minds aren't ready for your level of stability. Some rooms are still addicted to volume. You walk in, say little, and let your consistency speak louder than any trick ever could. Over time, people stop seeing you as someone with tactics and start seeing you as someone with clarity. And clarity is rare. It's not about memorizing lines. It's about knowing exactly who you are, what you stand for, and what you refuse to tolerate, all without raising your voice. There's a reason kings speak last. There's a reason true leaders don't chase followers. They attract loyalty, because their influence comes from embodiment, not effort. You can feel it in how they sit, how they breathe, how they react when chaos erupts. They don't panic. They calculate, and when they finally speak, it cuts. Not because it's louder, but because it carries weight. That's the influence you're building now. One that lasts. One that isn't turned on or off. One that isn't dependent on how others behave, but on how you've trained yourself to show up, regardless of who's watching. That's not just mastery. That's maturity. You've gone from needing control to becoming the person others adjust around. You've evolved past manipulation. You don't need everyone to bend, just the right ones to recognize. And those who recognize follow without force, because they sense you don't just want to win the moment. You want to build something bigger than that. And that kind of energy, silent, certain, unshakable, doesn't just control minds. It changes them. Let others play with control. You've moved on. You've become influence. There's a point no one talks about when it comes to power, the weight. The mental load of knowing you can pull strings, shape decisions, bend emotions, all without a single lie. It starts as a thrill, then it becomes a weapon. Then one day, if you're not careful, it becomes an addiction. And that's when the line blurs. You forget where the influence ends and the manipulation begins. You stop asking if you should, because you've mastered how. That's the danger. That's where brilliant minds go wrong, not because they didn't have control, but because they used it without boundaries. Power, without a code, doesn't just ruin others. It breaks you, slowly, silently. You begin to wear masks in every room. You start seeing people as moves, not humans. You calculate emotions like equations until nothing feels real, not even your own thoughts. And what started as a tool becomes your cage. That's why this comes with a warning. If you're going to use these psychological hacks, if you're going to influence minds, lead energies, control frames, then you need a line you won't cross. A code, a reason. Something untouchable inside you that power can't corrupt. Because you can win 100 times and still lose yourself once. And that one loss costs more than any victory is worth. So ask yourself, who are you without the control? Can you walk away from a moment you could dominate? Can you hold back when your silence could shatter someone's confidence? That's real power, not just having the edge, but knowing when not to use it. Control minds, yes, but never lose your own. That's not just a rule, that's survival, that's longevity. That's the difference between those who rise and those who rot. Control is not about volume, it's about silence that bends others toward you. If you've made it this far, it means you don't think like the crowd. You're wired for something sharper, something colder, something built in silence and executed with precision. That makes you rare, and the rare ones build their own rules. But this world doesn't reward silent power unless it's used with calculation. So if you're done watching and ready to move with intent, subscribe right now. Because this isn't just content, it's your mental upgrade system. And if you're serious about this, drop the words "command taken" in the comments. That's how I'll know who's actually stepping into the arena. The next episode will break down a mind control trick so dangerous it was used in military black ops training. Don't miss it. Stay sharp. Stay silent. Move like a ghost. Win like a god.